Jacob never had eyes for me, before or after. Our coming together was a thing of rote, to tick the boxes, but I reveled in it, his closeness, his scent, the texture of his skin against mine in the quiet hours when the Abuja rain drummed against the windows like it was trying to wash away every secret in the city. No regrets. But let me go back to the beginning, the way every good story deserves to unfold. Slow, layered, emotional, so you can close your eyes and feel every heartbeat, every dusty harmattan breeze, every stolen breath in the dark. Grab your headphones, family. This one's going to hit different. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because I'll be delivering it raw and real and honest. Let's begin. My name is Leah Okonkwo, and if you've ever walked the wide walkways of Abuja at dusk, when the streetlights flicker on like hesitant stars as cars rush to beat homebound traffic, and the smell of exhaust fumes mixes with the telling aroma of people struggling for their daily bread, you know beauty here isn't just skin deep. It's currency, power, the open sesame of all locks. My younger sister, Rachel, had it in overflowing measure. Skin like warm, polished mahogany, glowing under golden hour light, a laugh like silver bells, and eyes so deep and mesmerizing that it made men stutter their own names and forget their wives' phone numbers. She moved like an R&B song, hips swaying gently in her Ankara skirts, always camera ready, even when no one was filming. I was the older one by 4 years, taller, broader-shouldered, from the early days when Baba still made us help load feed sacks onto the trucks back in the village, before everything went high-tech. My face was strong, high cheekbones, full lips, eyes that didn't sparkle but saw everything, facial ingredients which did well on their own but didn't quite blend in the symmetry of beauty. Less remarkable, more useful. That was the label the aunties stamped on me at every family Owambe, whispered behind their fans while fanning themselves with the latest gossip. Leah is the reliable, steady one, but Rachel is the one that can start another civil war. I carried it like a heavy gele on my head, proud but aching underneath. Baba, Laban Okonkwo, had built Okonkwo Agrotech from a dusty cattle corral in Nasarawa into a gleaming 12-story glass tower in Maitama, where the conference rooms smelled of fresh coffee and ambition, and the air conditioning hummed louder than the generators outside. GPS collars on every single cow, blinking like tiny stars across the savannah. AI cameras that could spot a sick heifer before the vet Land Cruiser even kicked up dust. Blockchain ledgers so airtight that Gulf importers were already circling with contracts worth hundreds of millions of naira for our halal beef. We were weeks away from cracking the international market wide open, but we needed a genius to make the drones dance and the cold chain logistics sing. That genius walked confidently through the boardroom doors one humid Tuesday afternoon, wearing a crisp senator suit that hugged his broad shoulders just right, a MacBook Pro tucked under his arm like a trusted friend. Jacob Adebayo. He was just 28, sharp as a new razor blade fresh from Kenya, where he'd built and sold a livestock tech startup that made headlines we'd read about in awe at the time. When he stood there with the projector light playing on his face, voice steady and confident, laying out his vision, drone swarms mapping grazing routes across the open grasslands, predictive apps that told Fulani herders exactly when to sell before the market crashed, mobile wallets that bypassed every greedy middleman, you could feel the entire room lean forward like plants towards sunlight. But even with all my fascination with him, something about him tugged at me. He was a whiz, no doubt, brilliant, tireless, the kind of mind that made investors salivate and competitors lose sleep. Yet, I got the feeling he was running away from something heavy. Ask him about his family back in Ogun State, and he'd pivot smoothly to cattle feed ratios or blockchain latency, his eyes going distant like he was watching a skit playing out in real time on the horizon. He rarely talked about them. The one time the wall cracked, late one evening, when the office was empty and only the city light glittered beyond the glass, his eyes lit up like festival lanterns when he spoke of his mother, how she used to fry the best akara in the village, golden and crisp, how she taught him to read the sky for rain and the stars for direction. But when the conversation drifted towards his older brother, his jaw clenched tight, a shadow crossing his face like a sudden eclipse. I gathered they didn't get along. There was obviously something there, something more than a sibling spat, something dark and fractured. He carried it like an invisible yoke, and I wondered, in the quiet of my own heart, what could make a man like him run that far and that fast. I sat in the back of that boardroom, heart hammering so hard I was sure the microphone would pick it up. One time, after one brutal all-night strategy session, laptops glowing in the dim light, the faint scent of his sandalwood cologne mixing with the stale coffee, we had been the last ones left. The Abuja night hummed outside, Okadas revving in the distance. I reached across the table, my fingers brushing his hand, warm and steady, and after taking a breath for courage, pushed out the words that had been regurgitating in my mind for some time. My voice was low and vulnerable when I said, Jacob, what doesn't catch the eye at first or second inspection might be the most valuable of all. Some of us have staying power. We know how to stand in the trenches with you, to build something that lasts through the dry seasons and the floods. He had smiled, not cruelly. He was never cruel, but with a gentleness that hurt worse than outright rejection. He moved his hand away softly but firmly. Leah, you are a solid woman, the kind any man would be lucky to have anchoring him through storms. But Rachel, she's it for me. She's the one I see when I close my eyes at night. She's the dream. The words landed like hot coals on my chest. I smiled through the burn, nodded, and went back to my spreadsheets. But that night, alone in my room in the family compound in Guzape, I cried silent tears into my pillow, my heart railing at the unfairness of what we call love, the ceiling fan whirring above like it was mocking my longing. Baba shook Jacob's hand that day with his slow, dangerous smile, the one that meant he was already 3 moves ahead in a game only he knew the rules for. Jacob threw himself into the company like a man possessed, working from dawn till the call to prayer at dusk, turning our operation into something unstoppable. The Dubai deal ballooned overnight, but Baba had no intention of handing over half the empire through the marriage settlement Jacob had demanded. He pulled me into his study one evening, cigar smoke curling thick toward the ceiling. The initial silence barbed as he looked at me for a long moment. I had felt a chill rush over me when he finally spoke. Jacob is too valuable, Leah. Blood is thicker than any contract. We do this the old way. The plan was simple, ruthless, and cunning. The traditional wedding would go ahead as planned. Rachel would shine in the full bridal regalia for the public ceremony. Heavy white lace shimmering under the chandeliers, coral beads heavy and cool against her collarbone, gele tied high and proud like a crown. The money spray would be legendary, naira notes fluttering down like green confetti. Then, when the palm wine and champagne had done their intoxicating work, and Jacob was drunk, swaying and beyond reasoning, we would switch. I would slip in wearing the same outfit, veil draped low over my face, wearing my sister's perfume, but holding my own trembling breath. By morning, the marriage would have been consummated, the company would stay intact, and later, after another 7 years of Jacob's sweat, Rachel would still get her man. Guilt clawed at my insides like a wild animal. That same night after Baba had spoken with her, Rachel came to my room, mascara streaking her perfect cheeks in black rivers, her voice breaking as she whispered, "He loves me, Leah, not the business, not you. This is cruel. Baba is turning our lives into one of those old village tales." She sobbed against my shoulder, devastated, her body shaking with the kind of heartbreak only a girl who's always been the chosen one can feel. But in the end, she obeyed Baba, just as I did. We always did. But beneath the thick guilt which choked me every time I looked at Jacob as the day approached, Something hot and desperate was flickering to life in my heart. I felt, God forgive me, I felt more alive than I had in a long time, because this was my chance. The man I had wanted in silence, the one who had rejected me yet still haunted my dreams, would be mine for one veiled, stolen night. Even if the whole plan was built on deception, anticipation settled uneasily beside the guilt in my stomach. The wedding day exploded into life like a Nollywood finale. The International Conference Center ballroom overflowed with color. Asoebi in every shade of emerald and gold, the animated moves of the live band singers alternating with the dexterity of the DJ, the bass thumping so deep it vibrated in your ribcage. Small chops circulated on silver trays, puff-puff and spring rolls and samosa steaming hot, suya sizzling with pepper and onions, peppered snails that people talked about long afterward. Rachel was radiant, a vision in her lace and beads, her laughter ringing out as she and Jacob danced. Naira and dollar notes rained down until the floor looked like a lush green carpet. Jacob's hands rested on her waist like she was fragile glass, his eyes locked on her with a hunger and adoration that made my stomach twist. I stood in the shadows in my simpler wrapper, heart pounding like war drums, memorizing every second of his smile meant for her. By midnight, the alcohol had done its thing. Jacob was heavily intoxicated, laughing too loudly and swaying on his feet, eyes glassy as the groomsmen half carried him to the suite. Rachel, having changed into something quiet, slipped away quietly with Baba's driver, her eyes red-rimmed but resigned. I waited inside the presidential suite, already dressed in the heavy lace and beads, veil low over my face, the air thick with roses which decorated the suite, oud and my own nervous sweat. My hands trembled as I adjusted the wrapper one last time. The room felt alive with possibility and shame. They brought him in. He collapsed onto the king-size bed, mumbling her name like a prayer. My beautiful Rachel, we finally made it. With the low golden light from the bedside lamp as witness, when his hands found me, fumbling at first but urgent, then pulling me close with a strength that stole my breath, I said nothing. I let him kiss me, deep and desperate, the taste of palm wine and champagne sweet and sharp on his tongue. His body was warm, solid muscle under my palms, the scent of his cologne mixing with perspiration from the dance floor, sandalwood and man and desire. I closed my eyes and gave myself over to the moment completely, heart shattering and soaring all at once. His touch traced fire across my skin, his low groans vibrating against my neck, every movement a revelation. For those stolen hours in the dark, I was the one he wanted. No spreadsheets, no utility, just Leah, desired, held, loved in the only way he could give that night. I reveled in it, tears slipping silently down my cheeks as I memorized the texture of his back, the hitch in his breath, the way his fingers gripped me like I was the anchor he'd been searching for. I was awake long after he fell asleep, but slept fitfully. Morning came too soon, sunlight slicing through the heavy curtains like judgment. Jacob stirred, groaned, then bolted upright, eyes wide with shock and fury when they focused on my face. Leah! His voice cracked raw, betrayal slicing through the hangover haze. What the hell is this? Where is Rachel? What have you people done? I sat up slowly, pulling the sheet around my still tingling body, my voice steadier than the storm inside me. It was Baba's arrangement. The agreement was for a daughter of the house. I am his daughter too. He stared at me for what felt like eternity, anger and confusion warring across his handsome face. You knew. All of you played me like a fool in my own wedding bed. His laugh was bitter, hollow, echoing off the walls. Your father is a fox, and you You took what wasn't yours to take. In the days that followed, the company kept turning. Jacob had signed on for 7 years of service. The trick didn't erase the contract. So, after quiet adjustments to the traditional rights and fresh negotiations for another 7 years sealed over more cigars, he married Rachel properly. She got the fairy tale white wedding of her dreams, Jacob looking at her with the soft, adoring eyes he had promised from day one. She became the wife of his heart, the one who lit up every room for him. I remained the first wife, the veiled one, the mother of his first 4 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, born in those early, turbulent years, while Jacob worked like a man trying to outrun his own shadow. Each pregnancy was a quiet triumph, laced with ache. I felt their kicks in the quiet nights and whispered their names like blessings, hoping, praying that somehow, Jacob would begin to see me. But his heart stayed locked on Rachel. The soft glances across the dinner table, the private jokes whispered in the hallway, the expression on his face when she walked in wearing one of her designer wrappers, the way he reached for her automatically, those were hers alone. As the years stretched on and Rachel struggled to conceive at first, her perfect body betraying her in ways the cameras never caught, she grew restless, jealous in that quiet, cutting way only sisters can be. One evening in the big compound house in Maitama, with the generator humming softly outside, she came to Jacob with a suggestion. "Take Bilha," she said, voice tight. Bilha was a distant relative who had grown up with us and now worked as a young marketing assistant, helping with social media reels. "Let her bear for me," she added. And later, when my own room grew weary after Judah, I offered Zilpa, the quiet, hard-working farm supervisor with kind eyes and steady hands. She will help us build the family the company needs. The concubines entered our lives like quiet footnotes in a bigger epic. Bilha and Zilpa put away surrogacy contracts and became willing parts of the household and company, their roles blurred in the polygamous reality of our world. Dan and Naphtali came from Bilha's womb, strong boys with Jacob's sharp mind, born in the guest wing while Rachel cooed over them like they were hers. Gad and Asher followed from Zilpa, energetic, loyal, their laughter filling the compound during Hamatan evenings. I watched it all with a complicated tangle of emotions. Pride in the growing family, a fresh sting of jealousy that even my usefulness couldn't fully erase, and a deep maternal ache for every child who carried Jacob's blood. The house in Maitama became a lively, complicated village of its own, children running through the gardens, the scent from vast pots of rice and beef stew drifting from the kitchen, arguments and laughter blending like the call to prayer and church bells at dawn. The company grew bigger than any of us could have dreamed. Export deals sealed with farm handshakes and Dubai hotels. Farms expanded across 3 states. Shares listed on the exchange. But Jacob's past finally came out fully one rainy evening when we gathered in the living room telling old stories to pass time before going to bed. The truth spilled out in pieces, raw and unfiltered. How back in Ogun State, before Kenya, before us, Jacob had cheated his older brother out of the family birthright, the land, the small but thriving poultry empire his mother had poured her life into. A bowl of soup, a forged document, a desperate hunger to escape the village life. His brother stormed away, casting him to the ancestors. His mother's eyes filled with quiet sorrow the last time she saw him. That was why he ran, why he never spoke of family, why the whiz kid carried the same guilt I had carried on our wedding night. Jacob sat there, face shadowed and weary, and for the first time he looked at me, not with love, but with something close to weary understanding. "We're both products of tricks, Leah." His voice low and cracked. "Maybe that's why you never regretted that night." I didn't answer with words. I just reached over and squeezed his hand, feeling the familiar texture of his skin one more time. Jacob never had eyes for me before or after, but I had my place in this complicated, messy, beautiful life. I had my sons who carried his name and my steadiness. I had the concubines' children running to me for stories and bandages. I had the nights, fewer now, but still, when the rain lashed the windows and the house grew quiet, and he would come to my room anyway. Our coming together was dutiful, almost mechanical, yet I still reveled in it. His closeness, his scent, the texture of his skin against mine. No regrets. Because in the end, even the brilliant ones who run from their past eventually have to stop and face the mirror. And sometimes in this Abuja life of high-tech herds, international deals, 2 wives and 2 concubines under one vast compound roof, that quiet knowing was enough.
Ha! If you're still here after all that, family, thanks for listening. Have you ever been the solid one who got the duty instead of the dream? Have you ever loved someone without being seen at all? Hit like if Leah's story stirred something in your spirit. Subscribe for more Bible tales reimagined with African flavor. And tell me in the comments, what should we tackle next? Drop your thoughts. Until next time, stay blessed, stay real. Peace and love from Abuja.